Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Docs That Rock.
Docs That Rock!
I'm Roll Pal the Moo Cow, aka Paulie Presenza, and I'm joined by
Jonathan A. Moody, your co-host.
Yay! And today we are watching a movie from 2003 called You See Me Laughin', The Last of the Hill Country Bluesmen, which is a really cool, interesting movie. The guy goes out in the field searching for these old bluesmen who, some of them got signed on years ago, but most of them have been in obscurity, and he re-signs them to his new contracts to his new group, and then they do some recordings, and yeah, it's some really, really good stuff. There's some interviews with some famous people in there, and yeah, especially if you like that kind of music, blues, and especially the old style country blues. It's really, really good. We do a lot of music documentaries.
Well, it is called Docs That Rock.
Right. Yeah. But usually we've been doing like punk stuff or rock and roll stuff. This one's very, very different.
Yeah.
But it's still really, really good. And everyone that I've shown this to, even if they weren't really big blues people, they really enjoyed it. So it's just a very, very well shot movie. So
there you go.
We'll be back right after we watch the film.
All right. See you in a bit.
Bet. Docs. That rock! All right, so we are back. So what did you think? This is the first time you saw this movie, right?
It was good. I mean, not my world, not my
world either.
Well, I mean, I know. You're not one of the white guys that people think are taking advantage of the poor
no
jazz people. It was the big problem I have there is it's just slow. It was a little slow. I mean, and it didn't help that we already watched the movie beforehand, and that we're at daylight savings time, so everything got dark, and so all of it just was dark, and I was just kind of I don't know. I was getting kind of tired and sleepy through it, but I liked the movie. I thought it had. I mean, the characters were rich. The jazz guys were very rich. They had a personality to them. Old jazz men who are no longer with us, sadly. But yeah. And you were saying that like this is a. This is basically a time capsule because this isn't the kind of music that ever gets made today.
Yeah, it's not good. It's gone. That stuff is gone. There may be people playing that style, but they're not authentically, not like these guys are. So you have your sort of original period, sort of the 20s and 30s, where you have Robert Johnson and folks like that. And then you had your second period where it started to become a little bit more popular into the 40s and 50s. People like Muddy Waters and folks like that. I'm less interested in those. I really like sort of the original ones. And then you got these guys who kind of came after that second group, who kind of harkened back to the 20s and 30s folks, and they never really made it big at all. And nobody really knew who they were except for the local people. So thank God for Fat Possum and those guys going out there and finding these guys, signing them up, getting record contracts to them, recording them, and then finally getting them in a movie so that their legacy lives on, especially R.L. Burnside and Junior Kimbrough. I mean, those guys were just amazing players. And R.L. Burnside I know he was kind of the most famous one of the bunch in the early 2000s. I remember he would be on the shows and he would go touring and all that. So I'm glad to see that at least for him, because of course he was doing all this for his family. And all of these guys, they're real characters. They've come from a real rough background, extreme poverty, extreme violence. They talked about how Junior Kimbrough went to Chicago and lost 5 family members in the course of 8 months, getting murdered. Jesus Christ, they had to leave. And they weren't saints themselves. They would get into fights and kill people and shit. And
go to jail. One was on a chain gang.
Yeah, chain gang. So that's what I'm talking about. These are the real deal. These are the people that lived that life. It's not like they heard it on a record and picked up a guitar and said, "Oh, that sounds cool." I mean, they did that too, but they lived that life, you know.
There's that one guy. They said like they had to wait because he worked, I guess, all the time, and so they had to wait till like it thunderstormed, and then they got him to play. But when they got him to play, he played like 37 songs in a row,
right?
And they had to keep changing the reels quick enough so that they could get all of the record all of it.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome. Because it's a totally different world, and I like the fact because I remember when the albums were coming out, and there were people that loved it, and there were people, and I have to say, initially I was a little skeptical too because I'm more of a blues purist. But the thing is, and he makes out a good point, is like there aren't enough blues purists in the world to support these guys. You have to be able to bring them into modern worlds, and that's why they mixed and did different takes and sort of did more modern production work with them. And those albums, when they came out, it kind of caused a controversy because some of the people saw it as an advancement, and then the more purists were like, "This is awful. You're changing everything." But there was a reason why they were changing everything, and So I eventually ended up turning around because the couple of R.L. Burnside songs that came out, I mean, the albums that came out were just really, really good. It was just amazing. And having them work with the John Spencer Blues Explosion, which was a band I already really dug, that was really, really cool. And and seeing people like Bono and Iggy Pop experiencing it, and they're like, "Oh man, these guys are great."
Yeah, Bono seemed to really dig those guys, and there was something Bono said something that cracked me up, but now I can't remember it because it was early on in the movie, But he was, he really enjoyed it. I mean, it was fun for him to be there. I know he said something about Me Too, not You Too, or something like that. I don't know.
They didn't know who U2 was.
Yeah. They didn't know who U2 was.
They're famous all over the world, but you get into that part of the world,
no.
They don't know who the hell they are.
Well, I mean and this is pre like internet, or whatever.
Well, they would have found it anyway.
Yeah,
they barely had electricity.
I think they would have fought against the internet kind of thing. Oh, that one dude had the house that was like falling apart.
Ah, it was awful.
And the way he had to live, and he didn't. I guess he didn't seem to say anything about it. It was other people that were more complaining about it for him. Say that his the roof was leaking and all these other things, and they're trying to just get it,
they're like, "We're going to consider this in advance and just rebuild the house for him."
Yeah, like tear down the house and rebuild it. I thought that was it was nice. It just seemed like they cared about these people. They didn't just because when you see a lot of movies, especially like these documentaries and stuff, you hear about like the record companies that just don't
record companies
that just don't give a fuck about the band members. They don't, or the bands. They just want the money. They want good song. They don't want good songs. They just want songs that will get them rich.
Fat Possum's not like that.
Fat Possum seemed to be caring about, and I've heard of Fat Possum. I don't know where, but I don't listen to blues.
Well, they do some punk and some other stuff too. So they do have some other famous groups with them.
So who's the blues guy that was supposedly went to the Crossroads and?
That's Robert Johnson.
Robert Johnson.
Sold his soul to the devil.
Sold his soul to the devil. Was he the one you were talking about earlier? Like that was.
Yeah, he's kind of one of the original
blues guys.
Right.
But he's not. I mean, he wasn't. He was dead before.
Oh yeah, long dead.
Yeah. Sold his soul to the devil. I remember that. There was even an episode of Supernatural where they went to the Crossroads.
Yeah, that's a famous road.
The Crossroads devil, demons, and everything. So I think that
because he was so good. He was so good. Nobody could understand how he could play so well, and that was the story he made up. Yeah. He pretty much made it up himself because he was very savvy.
That's smart.
And the thing is, there's not a whole lot because of the period. There's not a whole lot of recordings of him, but when you hear him, oh yeah.
When you hear the recordings that they do, I wonder if any of that's on YouTube.
Oh yeah.
A
lot of it is.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
I know. Thank you.
That's kind of why I like Junior Kimbrough out of the bunch. Even though R.L. Burnside and those guys did much better overall, he doesn't sound like anybody else. And they talk about how these guys would, take a lot of songs and they would cover them and sort of do their own signatures of that. He wasn't doing that. He was like, I'm not making other people famous. He made all his own songs.
Like he said that. He actually said that line.
Yeah.
He said, "I'm not making any other people famous.
Right.
I'm, and he said that like it might sound selfish, but or no, somebody said that about him. Like said that it might sound selfish, but he cared about it. He just didn't want people basically stealing his stuff, or whatever.
And he didn't want to steal somebody else's stuff.
Yeah.
He wanted to be known for his own material.
Originality.
And he's not only does he have a unique style, so when you hear him enough, you're going to recognize it. He doesn't sound like anybody else. He's also playing music that nobody else has been playing. So I love R.L. Burnside. I mean, he does a lot of covers in addition to his own material stuff as well. So he's a good mix of the two. Plus, he's got a really great band. His kids learned how to play so that they could support him.
Which one's the one that has like 28 kids?
That's him.
That's him. And 28 kids. Jesus Christ.
You could put several bands together.
Ay. I don't know how anyone can have that many kids. One of the women in it was like one of his wives.
Actually, I think it's Junior Kimbrough that has 28 kids.
Oh, okay. One of the women that had came in and was talking about like she had 5 of the kids or whatever with the guy because and then I'm guessing they're no longer together, or were no longer together then.
I think they were.
They were.
Yeah.
Well, then okay. So he had what 23 kids before.
Remember, she's like, I always know he's coming on back.
23 kids. That's,
yeah, I know.
It's just a lot.
It's a very different world than when you and I and most everybody out there has grown up. It is a very narrow slice of life that otherwise is just gone to history. That's why I really like this documentary, because it's a world that you're never going to see again, that you're not going to know about, and it's done in such a way that it's not sanitized. They let them be themselves, whatever they're going to say or whatever they're going to talk about, no matter how controversial or whatever. They're talking about some kind of bad stuff, but that's okay. That's part of who these guys are and how it influences their music, and they just let it go. Very interesting, very, very cool, very realistic. I like that.
I don't know, how does he support 28 kids? That's all I'm like.
That's a lot of stuff.
How does he like afford that shit? Because like a lot of these guys are sort of poor. Like they didn't really have a lot of money. Like the record deal, I don't even think made them a lot of money. And everything like that. They were lucky to have somebody be able to put in advance to fix the house. But like, I don't know. It drives me crazy to think like those poor kids are probably poor and growing up and
oh yeah. Without the dads playing for them now, yeah. But you would think at this point they also have legacy contracts, so stuff that's sold in the future they're going to get royalties. At least I hope so.
I hope so.
I'm sure Fat Possum saw to that.
I know. Is Fat Possum still around?
They are.
So are they doing blues still, or
that I don't know. I haven't really checked out their stuff in quite a while.
I wonder if they're still doing blues, because blues is not big anymore. Like
and they didn't do this because it was big. They did it because somebody had to record these guys, and they decided to do it.
These guys, but these guys are no longer around. So
right.
I'm wondering, they can't, and none of the legacy blues guys are around anymore.
Although maybe the one white guy did, the Brown, what was his name, Alton Brown or whatever. The one white guy who was playing amongst them, he might still be alive because he was young enough. I'd have to look. He was pretty good. And I love the fact that he just like grew up next to this black guy who was playing the blues. And he's like, well, I want to play too. So he walked over and he's like, can you show me how? And the guy's like, sure. This is how you do it. And then he would just go there after school, and that's how he learned. And I think that's awesome.
That is awesome. That's but I mean, so I think in the movie Elvis or whatever, they showed that Elvis liked the blues, because Elvis grew up with black people too. and so he would play blues with these guys or whatever and stuff, and then he did his own rock music or whatever, and I just think that's pretty cool. Like, to think Elvis did the blues, and he did. I mean, I guess a couple of his songs kind of have a bluesish kind of feel to it, but it's rock, or whatever. So not
and he did a lot of spirituals and gospel
gospel stuff. Yeah. He grew up with around black people, and that's what he did, and that's wonderful. Like, that's fantastic. I like the blues. I like the blues I hear in the movies. Like in Weird Science or what's the other one? Like I think it was Adventures in Babysitting. They had to sing the blues because there's a scene in Adventures in Babysitting where the kids like are trying to get away from this person, and they're like, you can't leave without singing the blues. And they're like, and they go
Hollywood blues.
Yeah, and they're like, my name is blah blah, and that's Hollywood. Yeah, that's
Right.
what the Hollywood thinks of the blues.
You go back and listen to some of the stuff from the 20s and 30s, and you'll be amazed.
No, it doesn't sound
Really
anything
good
like
stuff.
that. Yeah,
But these guys are a throwback to that kind of music.
Well, those guys. I mean, those guys are what. I guess those guys are like one of the last of them, right?
Absolutely.
Like that. And so, like you said, like the blues don't exist anymore, basically.
Not in that type, not in that throwback style. If there are, I couldn't tell you who's doing it. I mean, I don't know.
There's gotta be people still.
Maybe. I
keeping
hope
it
so.
alive.
I hope so.
Probably down in New Orleans, I would imagine, because that's
Maybe.
like the blues, right?
Well, that's more jazz.
That's jazz.
Yeah.
Well, I
more
thought
jazz.
blues and jazz kind of go together.
They're somewhat different.
I mean, they're different.
They
but I thought
they do work together.
Right. I thought like, I guess I thought that jazz and blues sort of
They can play off each other.
Yeah, or people kind of always not combine them together like music wise, but kind of always had people who sang the blues also do be in the same place as the jazz
It's
people.
kind of like country and western. They're very similar, but they're different also.
Country's not country anymore. Like, and if anything,
No, and that's just it. Music styles do change over time, and you have to understand and accept that. That was something that I had to get used to, especially because, like I said, I fell in love with those 20s and 30s style blues, and there wasn't anything like that anymore. And the people that, like the rock and roll white bands that got big in the 60s and 70s, loved the second generation of that, the Muddy Waters 50s stuff. And I didn't like that part.
Really?
Because it didn't sound like the original stuff that I listened
I think
to.
my family, like my parents, liked Muddy Waters.
It was more popular. It was a lot more popular. Which was okay. It just didn't sound like the stuff that I like. So for a long time, I kind of held on to that. But
what's bluegrass? Like, is that like
that's a whole other different
that's
style.
a whole
Yeah,
different thing?
that's like Appalachia.
Oh my goodness!
You know?
There's so many kind
Yeah.
of like music that I just don't listen to.
And that's just in America, man. You know?
Yeah, imagine like in India or
Right, and I imagine there are documentaries that go into various different styles if you got into it. That's
Well,
really
I'm
cool.
surprised. Like, yeah, because like we're watching. This is Docsat Rock, and there are a lot of music and a lot of documentaries probably about certain music that people wouldn't be aware of in the States unless we saw that documentary.
And this is the same thing happening all over again. The reason we even know about some of these guys in the 20s and 30s is because the Smithsonian sent people out in the field to record these guys, because they were literally in the fields working when they would record them. And some of them, got famous, and they ended up like Robert Johnson and a couple others. But if it weren't for the fact that they sent people out there to record them back in those days, it'd be gone. We'd never hear anything.
Is that like an archive kind of thing?
Yes, absolutely. There are national archives, and there's other places that you can go and listen to. In fact, they even put out a series that you can listen to. And it's not just guitars, it's all different kinds of singers and players, harmonica. And
is the National Archives like free, or is it like, do you have to pay to get in or whatever?
I believe you can just go on in there. I don't know about the music section. I've never really done that, but you can go online, and there's all kinds of stuff.
You show me some stuff from the National Archive, like movies and stuff, like public domain.
But
films.
if you look up the field recordings, National Archives field recordings, and you'll see a whole bunch of stuff out there, and a
And
lot
they're
of it,
like MP3s or something,
yeah,
or whatever.
and a lot of it is just they're just people that have just no name people that just were playing guitars. You know, some people they didn't even have guitars; they would just make guitars out of like broomsticks and string. You know, it's just they would just create their own stuff because they didn't have the money to actually have instruments, but they had the talent and the desire and the need to make and create music, and that's what they would do. It was part of their culture to deal with the life that they were given.
I can see people like drumming on buckets and stuff,
Yeah,
or whatever.
or whatever, you know.
That's
So
interesting.
yeah, it is. It's a fascinating part of Americana, and that's what I like about this, because you don't see that often at all. You really don't. It's just sort of a part of America that's forgotten, unfortunately.
What was the name of it? You
See Me Laughin'. That was one of the songs that R.L. Burnside was singing, and so
Okay.
yeah, You See Me Laughin'. It's the last of the Hill Country Bluesmen.
The last of it,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure. And that kind of, once again, that kind of sucks, because that's like an end of an era, you know, and everything.
Yeah.
And I mean,
I can't say Fat Possum got to all of them. There's got to be others out there, maybe, who have passed it on to their grandkids. I'm hoping, maybe.
see, I'm a what is it? Like, I'm a retro guy. You know me. I like a lot of stuff that are older or whatever, if I can get into it. I mean, I'm not retro. Like, I'm not. You know, you're more retro than I am. You like the 1920s and 30s and stuff, but. I like that we're able to like go back there and see that stuff and everything. But then it always kind of makes me sad because, you know, we go into the future, you know, in the present, and music has just changed. It's not like what I grew up on in the 90s and what you grew up in the 80s and whatnot. It's just completely different.
Oh, I know. It's like
you know?
in the 70s, 60s and 70s was the big like R&B and funk kind of came out around the same time.
Funk.
I couldn't stand R&B because I just thought it was lame sauce, but that was what was kind of popular.
Yeah.
On the other hand, I loved funk. Funk was awesome.
You like George Clinton?
Yeah, I liked all that stuff. Anything, because it got me moving, and it was a lot more along the punk lines, which is what I really dug. But R&B is still a thing now, whereas funk is pretty much gone. You don't see it anymore.
George Clinton was in this.
Oh yeah, nice.
PCU. He shows up, and they a great story is that originally they wanted Nirvana, but Nirvana was too expensive, so they couldn't get back then in the 90s or whatever. So they were trying to get they had to get somebody, so they ended up getting George Clinton, and they had him come in and do his part. And they were paying him for like 3 days or whatever, you know? But he got it knocked out in like 1 day, you know? So the producers are like, just put him in some more things, you know, blah, blah, blah. You know, we're paying him.
Nice.
So they made him do some more stuff, extra stuff, I guess. I wish there was a Blu-ray of that because I'd love to see some extra
that'd be cool.
Extra stuff. But George Clinton was great in that movie. And
Parliament, baby.
The Parliament Funkadelics. And the greatest line in that movie is, you know, is the P-Funks, man. Or the P-Funks. He goes, you hate punk. He goes, funk, man, funk. You know, like the George Clinton and the Parliament Funkadelics. He's talking, you know, it's Jake Busey talking to John Favreau. And John Favreau goes, who? And he goes, George Clinton? Aren't you like a music major? He goes, yeah. And everybody just starts laughing at him.
That's funny.
It's a great scene.
Well, I'm waiting for funk to come around again because usually everything that's popular eventually comes back around and gets popular again. You know?
Maybe. I mean, I would. I just think it would be different now.
Yeah. Oh, it is. And that's the other thing too, is that even if some of these grandkids, great grandkids, in a lot of cases, are exposed to this, what are the odds that they're still going to actually be interested in it? Because honestly, you know, you look at like the African American community, it's not blues and funk and that kind of stuff that the kids are into. It's rap and hip hop and all the other kind of stuff that's the big thing now. So odds are that's probably what the kids are going to be into now.
Maybe.
You know, it's going to take one person who's going to go back and enjoy that old stuff and maybe bring it into the future with maybe combining with something that's here and now.
Yeah,
you
wasn't
know?
Sublime like a mixture of like reggae and ska and punk all together, fused all together?
Right.
Because Bradley liked that kind of, all of that kind of music into one.
Right.
So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if somebody just kind of combined rap, R&B, and funk, or jazz and blues, and all of that stuff together. Just
Of course,
to make it interesting.
I'm kind of a snob because to me, in order to play that stuff, you have to actually be a musician. You have to learn how to play it. You have to be a good one. Whereas a lot of this other stuff, it's more production. You're not playing instruments. You're it's beats and sequencing, and it's computers.
A lot of the rap and stuff is, I mean, it's just taking different clips.
And honestly, anybody can do that. Maybe not anybody can do it well, but anybody can at least do it. You can't pick up a guitar and just play it.
And here, and another thing with the rap
piano
stuff is a lot of the rappers are just vocalists, and there's somebody else that's making the
and
music.
shit, they're not even vocalizing anymore. Now it's all going through the box thing. God, it's awful. Modern music is just terrible. But the good thing is that because of the internet, there's still a lot of great music out there. It's not being played on the radio because the radio doesn't exist to give us free great music. The radio exists to make us buy shit we don't need. So
well, you don't need, but other people like it or whatever.
None of us really need it, but that's the whole point. So they're only looking for music.
None of us need anything but food, shelter, and water.
I know, but they're trying to make you buy more than that.
Right.
You got to buy the latest iPhone because, God forbid, you don't have the latest.
Well, God forbid, this is gonna. My iPhone 8 Plus or whatever that I have, is old as shit. That means. Old as shit. Like they're on the iPhone 14, I think.
And what's the difference between the 14 and the 13? Anything?
More space, more better video quality, things like that. Each year it gets better and better as far as quality goes. But I mean, right now I'm making videos with 1080p. I don't need.
Right. I mean, you're doing fine.
But I don't need it. But if I had it like for cheaper or whatever, like for Black Friday, and they had a really good deal, should I get it? Should I upgrade it? Probably.
Well, what if there was something like, say, an iPhone 12 out there? Would it be worth doing that? Because it's still better than the 8, whatever you've got, right?
Maybe. I mean, I don't know. It just depends. Now, my biggest problem was going from one. I think when something of mine crashed or whatever for my computer, I lost Final Draft, and I couldn't get it back. Which sucked because we paid $200 or $300 for it. Right? It was expensive, and that was on a discount. So that's actually
the other reason I don't do Apple stuff.
Yeah, well, no, but that would have been anyone. The Final Draft is for all groups or whatever. I think Final Cut is Apple, but Final Draft.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, so Final Draft for the screenplay stuff, I got a discount, and then all of a sudden, when something crashed or whatever on my computer and I lost it, I couldn't upload it anymore.
And that's why at some point we need to invest on a computer that's a company computer only, and that is just.
Well, I've got Writer Duet now, and that's not going to crash ever because that's on the internet. That other thing was just a app, it wasn't.
Until AI takes it over, writes all your scenes for you.
That, I mean, would I mind about that? No, I mean, as long as they were good,
Well, they're not going to be writing blues music, that's for sure. If they did, it's going to suck.
They won't write blues music because nobody wants to write blues music right now. I don't think.
Well,
I don't think it's came back again, which kind of sucks.
I think there are a lot of people who do. It's just you're not going to see them on mainstream media.
You might see them on YouTube.
Yeah, you might see them on YouTube.
If you look up new blues music, maybe.
And that's interesting. I've actually never done that. That's probably worth trying.
Oh, I mean, look, we're on YouTube. We love YouTube. We really do. We think YouTube is awesome.
There's probably channels out there for just that sort of thing, I would think.
Yeah.
You know? It's
or
worth looking.
like your jazz appreciation channels or something. People who maybe interview people who have done stuff with jazz, you know, and things like that. You
Sure.
might get to learn more about jazz. I mean, this was an interesting documentary. I mean, I learned a little, but I feel like it was more about the camaraderie and the people and hanging out with the people and listening to the music and stuff like that than it was an actual like history of what jazz was about. Because that's not what the story's about.
No.
So
this is a very specific group of people in a very specific area.
Yeah. It would have been cool, at least, if somebody at some point did I don't know if there is a documentary about like how jazz all got started. Probably a History Channel documentary.
Well, and you got to figure too. This is a Fat Possum movie, so it's going to be about their people,
and about how how they found everybody, you know, and everything. I liked it. I enjoyed it. I would definitely.
And I think it's interesting because I know there are people who are shocked that the moo cow, who loves, you know, weird shit and funk music and all that, they're like, you listen to blues? I'm like, yeah, I don't just listen to one thing, you know.
Well, I mean, I don't think people be surprised. You're very crotchety about your music and about your movies, so this actually seems right up your alley.
Especially because it was some really good stuff. Because then like I said, Junior Kimbrough especially has that style that nobody else has. It's just, you can just, I don't know if you saw me, and I was definitely rocking out to when he was playing. It was just like, oh, this is great.
Yeah.
And it'll always, thanks guys, because it'll always be there now. And I know if you go on YouTube and you put in Junior Kimbrough, a bunch of his music's going to come out. So.
Well, I would definitely recommend this movie. I think people would get it, you know, especially if you're into that kind of stuff. If you're into that, you probably already know about this movie.
And that's just it. Even if you just are interested in the blues, this isn't going to tell you about everything, and it's not going to give you a retrospective, but it is going to give you a nice little slice of this kind of blues from this kind of an area with these old guys who are all gone now.
Yep.
So it's kind of a learning experience. There's some great music, and check it out. Maybe it'll spur your interest into, you know, checking out some other blues. Maybe it'll get you into what's going on now. Maybe it'll get you into looking in the old field recordings from the 20s and 30s. You never know. It's worth checking out, you know, because you don't know what you don't know. You might listen to something and be like, wow, I don't know what that is, but that sounds cool. Give it a try.
Oh, I mean, the music was nice. I had no problem with the music at all. And problem with the lights being out and being dark and being tired. You know, but
plus, and I just like that they are characters. They are serious characters. The one dude, I forget, it's not AC, it's the other guy, Sidell Davis. You know, talk about a hard life. I mean, he had malaria as a kid, then he had polio, and then he got run over, and his hands were all messed up, and he had to actually learn to play the guitar upside down, and one hand doesn't work, so he had to play with a butter knife. And it still didn't stop him from playing the guitar, because that's what he wanted to do.
Well, it goes back to that one documentary we watched about the punk kid who what is it? Basically, the one kid who he couldn't not play punk music, you know, or whatever, no matter what. Even if because he was a crazy person.
You're talking about, the guy from Brian Jonestown Massacre.
Yeah, and he was just so, like, there was nothing else he could do in life other than play music. That was his love, you know, period. That was the only thing he could, like, if he didn't, he would have to die before he couldn't do anything else.
Model T4, he's like, I didn't learn how to play the guitar until I was 58, never even picked it up a guitar. I thought that was fascinating. You never think that. You think that these guys have been playing all their lives, but no. 58 he picks it up and he's in his 70s. Just goes to show you. You can wait all your life before you become really good at something.
A lot of people in acting, you know, like some people in acting, they don't start doing it till they're like 30 or 40. And it's because they just decided, you know, like, I want to I wanted to do this before, but I just never did.
Mm.
And you didn't start acting until
Other than a few classes here and there and a few things for some friends. Yeah, no.
yeah. But I guess it wasn't more real until you started working with us
Mm-hmm.
and everything. And so I mean, you just never know. But
You got to push yourself a little bit. I didn't really want to because I didn't like, memorizing lines, but I had to push myself a little bit to do things, and that's life. You're not gonna know if you like something until you at least try it.
Yeah, like the guy who picked up the guitar, and
Mm-hmm.
he was like, "I'm gonna try this," and he tries it. I can't do music because I'm deaf in my left ear. So since I'm deaf in my left ear, I can't hear, like, I can't. My sound is off, and everything. So I wouldn't be able to play guitar or sing in a band or do those things because I can't sing worth shit. But even if my ears were working, I'm still tone deaf.
I kind of wish, this is one I kind of wish we had one or two of our friends, like Lola, who's in a band, and a couple other folks we have that are more musically inclined. I'd be very curious as to what their takes on this would be.
Yeah, and one of the other musical ones, we'll try to get Lola down here.
Yeah.
'Cause you do a lot of music ones. There's a lot more
There
out
are.
there.
There's a lot of good ones.
A lot of good documentaries about music. I never even heard of this one, to be honest. And so I was.
But you heard of Fat Possum.
Weirdly enough, somewhere I've heard of it.
They had their day in the 2000s.
That was probably it. Somewhere in the 2000s, I heard the name on the internet or something,
Mm-hmm.
like Fat Possum Records.
Yep.
And I always heard that name, so I didn't remember what band or if even it was a band that I heard about it or something.
They're still out there. I just don't know who they're repping anymore. I'll have to check it out.
They probably changed, like,
I'm sure.
with the time, and everything. I mean, because I just don't. Even though this was a passion for them, like passion project stuff, after a while, especially after the people passed, you got to start finding new.
You got to make some money. You got to make some money.
You can't just live off of the old records and stuff like that.
I love how they were going to Arnold Burnside and they're like, dude, don't sweat those little bitty checks. If they find out how much you're actually really making, you're going to get arrested and thrown in jail, and we're going to be there with you. I hope we can get cells next to each other.
Yeah, the cells next to each other. Yeah, that was pretty funny.
Yeah.
I like that. I don't know. It was a cute little movie. I honestly am glad I've seen it. It's one of those things. Once like the Pet Cemetery one, I'm glad I saw it. I don't think I'll be like seeking this out necessarily, like again, because it's in my head, but it's not something like, I don't know. It's not like the Lost Soul movie where I'm gonna definitely want to watch that again.
And then also speaking as a couple of guys who grew up in the nice, safe white suburbs, it's a learning thing also to see what the African American experience is and how very different a world is and how the whole musical culture can grow up despite of all of those obstacles that they have to overcome on a freaking daily basis. I can't imagine living in some of the conditions and some of the areas that these guys have had to go through and still persevere and create that kind of art. I mean, that's just amazing to me.
I'm surprised that that they were so okay with a bunch of white men coming in and kind of, doing that they weren't like, no, I'm sorry, I'd wait for a black record label to take over or something. That's a lot of times, like the movies and stuff like that, that's usually what happens is the black community does not like the white community come in and try to do their stuff because they want to to control it.
Well, it's only been recently that there even really was black record companies. I mean, it was pretty much whites only. It's a little different now. There's a lot more of it now, but unfortunately, that's not the style of music that they're interested in.
That the black record labels are like
Right.
interested in.
So it took guys who really, really, really wanted, or were very, very interested in it, to go and rescue some of this music, and thank God for that. You know, so it gets to a point where it doesn't really matter what your ethnicity is, as long as it's really good music that's worth saving for the future generations, so it doesn't vanish.
Right.
As an archaeologist, I totally get that. I mean, that's what I do, is I help protect cultural resources that otherwise would be vanished into obscurity. So I totally get that, you know, because otherwise, you know, you can learn from things, or else it's just gone, you know. So
Exactly.
I totally get that.
Yep. Well, I think that about wraps it up. This is like the second to last of the season, so you got one more.
There's one I've been saving. I'm hoping we get somebody with us for that one. But yeah, the one we've been wanting to do.
Oh, the one we've been talking about.
Yeah, we're
Did
gonna
you buy
do
it?
Not yet, but I have the DVD.
Okay.
So if I don't get it,
look, I bought it. So if you don't,
okay, we
if
can
you
use
don't
yours.
get it, we can
Yeah,
use mine.
okay.
So, but yeah, there's one big one.
Yeah.
And that we want to
Been
save for the
saving
season
it for
finale.
the finale. Yeah.
But we're hoping to get an extra person that
Definitely.
hasn't seen it.
Yes.
That's the thing.
Because I already know we both love this
We both
movie.
love the movie. It's kind of like, I'll just give you a hint. It's kind of like Lost Soul. We both love the movie, so we can't wait to discuss it. You know, but unlike a Lost Soul, I do want to get somebody else that hasn't seen it too.
Somebody who will be very, very entertained, I think, would be useful. I think it'd be fun.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, that'll be a great one. So
Or you can get a couple people. It'd be great.
one
One would be good enough.
One can be enough.
But it'd be great if we had a few. That's all I'm saying. So,
Yeah. Some
well,
money
anyway.
would be nice.
yeah. Well, anyway, thanks for joining us, and I guess we will see you next time for the season finale of Docs That Rock.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Docs